Good morning. Welcome to the Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference Phase 3. May I please ask you to rise for the arrival of our chief guest, His Excellency the President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Thank you. You may now be seated. May I kindly request the attendees to either switch off your phones or have them on silent mode. To begin the inaugural session, may I please invite Ambassador Bernard Gunathilaka to deliver his welcome remarks.
Vikramasinghe, Your Excellencies representing the diplomatic missions based in Colombo, Ambassador Shivashankar Menon, co-chair of the conference, Mr. Melinda Morogoda, founder of the Pathfinder Foundation, distinguished participants. I wish to warmly welcome the participants for the Indian Ocean region and beyond attending today's hybrid event in person and virtually. Pathfinder Foundation, an apolitical and not-for-profit think tank, commenced its work in 2008. Security and strategic studies have focused on all aspects of the Indian Ocean and the vibrant Bay of Bengal. In that process, over the years, we have conducted numerous events such as conferences, seminars, workshops, etc., in association with local and foreign academic institutions as well as think tanks. The Phase 3 of the Indian Ocean Security Conference follows the previous two phases, which were held in 2020 and 22. Those endeavors reflected the abiding interest of the Foundation in fostering dialogues on ocean-related issues. Another ongoing focus of ours is the annual Bay of Bengal Maritime Dialogue, co-hosted in association with the Swiss-based Center for Humanitarian Dialogue. The next dialogue will be held in Colombo 3 months from now. In 2017 and 2018, Pathfinder hosted 2 regional meetings known as Trincomalee Consultations, focusing on issues relating to the Bay of Bengal. It was also an attempt to focus on Trincomalee, which has one of the largest natural harbors in the world, to identify the role it could play in providing services to the Bay of Bengal community. July last year, Sri Lanka signed an MOU with India to develop the long neglected Trincomalee harbour as well as outlying areas. Meanwhile, President Vikramasinghe, in his earlier capacity as Prime Minister, engaged the services of Surbana Jurong, a Singapore-based state-owned consultancy company, to design a blueprint to develop Trincomalee, which we hope will take off soon. In 2018, the Foundation also launched an occasional paper to stimulate interest in a code of conduct for the Indian Ocean as an extension to the Djibouti Code of Conduct, covering the Western Indian Ocean. All these activities demonstrate our continuous interest in the ocean that provides access and livelihood to millions of people living on the shores of the vast Indian Ocean. Of all the oceans in the world, the Indian Ocean plays a pivotal role in providing economic prosperity, security, and environmental well-being to millions of people living in the coastal area of the Indian Ocean and the wider global community, thereby conceding a preeminent position to the Indian Ocean. Considering this water body's importance, we must recognize its pivotal role in global trade and commerce as a veritable storehouse of natural resources, both onshore and offshore, and in ensuring international security and stability. No wonder why some ports in Sri Lanka, such as Mahatita or Mahatota, known as Mahatota, yes, in the ancient times, Trincomalee, Galle, Colombo, were coveted by Arabs, Ethiopians, known as Abyssinians those days, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Chinese, and Europeans over the last several centuries. Today, the Indian Ocean is expanding, albeit metaphorically, to embrace the Pacific, which is not a geographical entity, but who lived in 1920s. The idea gained ground with the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's vision of free and open Indo-Pacific, which he elaborated in Kenya in 2016 after outlining the hypothesis in a speech he made in the Indian Parliament 9 years earlier. Since then, the US and its allies, having realized the strategic advantage of combining the two oceans, have enthusiastically embraced and promoted the concept of free and open Indo-Pacific. Some may question the motives behind Sri Lanka's deep interest in the Indian Ocean. In size and population, Sri Lanka is considerably smaller than some of its Asian neighbors. However, our island has been rewarded with a strategically important geographical location in the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka's strategic importance with its deep water facilities in the eastern, western, and southern coastlines was described as an aircraft carrier parked 14 miles off the Indian coast by our co-chairman Ambassador Menon in his book Choices. The EEZ of Sri Lanka covers 510 square kilometers, and in keeping with 1982 Law of the Sea Convention, Sri Lanka's jurisdiction over the continental shelf will surpass its landmass at least by 20 times. Against such a scenario, it is only natural for Sri Lanka to demonstrate its abiding interest in the vast ocean surrounding the island. Now, to turn our focus on the conference. We will first discuss Indo-Pacific strategy and its implications to the Indian Ocean community. We hope our focus will allow participants to understand how the Indo-Pacific strategy will impact the populations living on the shores of the Indian Ocean. Maritime domain awareness is a subject that has gained much interest recently. The Indian Ocean covers approximately 70.5 million square kilometers, which is by any standard a vast area. Countries in the Indian Ocean region will naturally find it beyond their means to police this enormous stretch of water effectively. While these shortcomings over maritime domain awareness are being addressed, there is scant knowledge of what goes on beneath the surface of this vast body of water. Lack of resources and scarcity of technical know-how prevent the Asian and African countries from the global south from investing in the development of underwater capability and benefiting from the blue economic opportunities the Indian Ocean can provide. Session 2 of our event is devoted to security and economic dimensions of underwater domain awareness, which will allow us to understand issues relating to the subject matter. Finally, the third session will cover three broad areas: climate change, disaster management, and blue-green economy. With this, I conclude my opening remarks. While wishing the conference success, on behalf of the Pathfinder Foundation, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to His Excellency the President for gracing the occasion despite his busy schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Gunathilaka. May I now kindly invite His Excellency, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, to address the conference.
Your Excellencies, co-chairs, distinguished guests. It gives me great pleasure to be here with you and with the Pathfinder Foundation in addressing one of the key issues for us in Sri Lanka, for us in the region, and for all of us in the world, for the continuing interest that has been shown in security and this region. The Indian Ocean, let's take it on its own, not as a part of BRI or part of the Indo-Pacific. Indian Ocean has now ceased to be in the backwaters, and we have become one of the strategic geopolitical regions in the world. It has happened in the last 5-6 years. Events have helped us more than any other issue. So how does Asia fit into this context? Asia, after all, has its own identity, an identity older than that of Europe. The first set of geopolitics was played either both in the Mediterranean and in the Indian Ocean. And the Indian Ocean geopolitics have gone on, and it has also changed the politics of the world. Britain's second empire and its rise to preeminence was due to India. Without India, Britain was nothing. That's what Churchill realized. So he opposed the independence being granted to the Indian empire, but that was too late. By that time, the world opinion had turned in favor of India, and more than that, 2.5 million Indians had fought in the World War II and they were returning. Now that's something they could not deal with. So that's one. That certainly had impact. India has always influenced the outcome of the Indian Ocean geopolitics to a large extent. In the Muslim kingdoms, the Arab kingdoms was another, and for some time Indonesia and that area from the time of Sriwijaya onwards. So this is basically Asia. Of course, colonial rule meant that we were shoved into the backwaters, but nevertheless we were one of the most important regions in World War II. And after independence, we started reasserting identity. Firstly, even before independence, Prime Minister Nehru summoned the Asian Relations Conference. This was followed by Prime Minister John Kotalawala, who summoned the Colombo Powers Conference, which in turn summoned the Bandung Conference. Now, Bandung is the key watermark. That is where the Asian identity was established, and we carried that forward. Thereafter, Prime Minister Nehru with President Tito and Nassau started the non-aligned movement, you had to include Indonesia, who was responsible for summoning the second Bandung Conference, Asia-African Conference, and also Sri Lanka, which got involved. So India, Indonesia, Sri Lanka has been involved throughout. Pakistan and Myanmar at different stages dropped out. Now what has happened now? In the last 5 years, we have come to the forefront for different reasons. One is the continuing, the build-up of tensions over Taiwan and in Asia, in East Asia, which has resulted in China shifting its emphasis to the Indian Ocean. And the Silk Route has, the BRI, has played a prominent role. The only question that has come is with the debt crisis of how the debt is to be handled by China. So that's one issue that's come up. But during the process, one thing else happened. The Ukraine war, the sanctions imposed by the West did not result in the collapse of the Russian economy. It just shifted eastward. If you look at the amount of oil that is being refined in the Gulf refineries, it is far more than what is found in the Middle East. With the Russian and the Iranian oil, no one knows, we don't know what we are buying. There's a certificate. But whole of the Russian economy shifted here into this region towards Singapore and Hong Kong, but this became the main region with Dubai. So Russia has not collapsed, but the Russian economy instead of looking westward has come eastwards. And the money is here. So that became one presence. Secondly, Iran. Iran and Saudi Arabia has made up part due to the Chinese intervention. So that's the second power block that's coming up. The Arab nations and the Sunnis and the Shias, both are coming together. They have their differences, but nevertheless they are talking to each other, and some relationship has come about. But it also means in the medium term the rise of Iran. After all, the road to Central Asia lies through Iran, and India is helping Iran also in developing the second port. So you got a second group there. Third one is India. India itself become one of the largest economies, and Indian market will keep expanding till late 21st century. So look at the potential for India, which everyone has recognized. And next is Indonesia. And finally South Africa. So you can see how the new power balancers have come. First was the issue of the US, China, presence of Russia, rise of Iran, rise of the Asian powers. But it goes beyond that. For instance, you have the Shanghai Cooperation countries bordering the Indian Ocean, 3 of them. Another aspect are the BRICS. The majority of the BRICS are in this region. These are the ones who are challenging the supremacy of the dollar. You take India, you take South Africa, and Saudi Arabia, take Iran, even Egypt. So all those countries are around the Indian Ocean. In a sense, it's building up on one of the other Indian Oceans nations want to take the lead again, and that's happening. Then the freedom in the operation years, the Colombo port suffered. So we have to ensure that there is, as far as we are concerned, freedom of navigation exists there. The main issues have been the Somali pirates and now the Houthis. Houthis themselves are terrorist organization because we have recognized the Yemen government. So this is one part. The other issue which is now coming up is the undersea domain as far as security is concerned. How do you deal with that? So we feel Pacific, that's something that has to be worked out. China and US together. So with these two, we saw the emergence of Asia Pacific when relations were good. Now the relations have turned sour. So are we to be the battleground in the Indian Ocean? Secondly, to me it was a lackadaisical approach of bringing the Indian Ocean in. All of a sudden decided that Indo-Pacific will stop at the western boundary of India. Now that is not our ocean.